Welcome everyone to the Fall 2025 Egg Protection Device Competition webinar hosted by our chairs, Rob Thomas and Armin. If you guys would like to give your introductions and whatnot, feel free. I'm going to mute up and you guys take it from here.
All right, thanks. Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Jaden. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, wherever you happen to be in the world. My name is Robert Thomas. I'm an associate professor of civil engineering at Clarkson University in Northern New York State. I am the EPD competition chair. Armin, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Armin Amerkanian. I'm associate department head at the University of Alabama Civil Engineering Department, and I am the chair of the Aesthetics Committee, 124, and I developed in collaboration with Rob and others in our committee the aesthetics portion of the competition.
Great, thanks. So thanks everybody for being here. We thought it might be good to take some time to just talk a little bit about the competition. I have a short presentation prepared here, which I will, if I can find the share button, there it is. I will share that right now. So I'll just go through a few slides and then I'll have Armin maybe say a few things about the aesthetics competition before we open it up to questions. Armin, do you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. So first, the competition sponsored by ACI 239, which is the Ultra High Performance Concrete Committee, whose mission is to develop and report information on UHPC. The committee has a couple of documents that I think are useful for all of you to probably look at. I think as ACI members, you probably have access to these documents, or your advisors at least have access to these documents. The first is what's called the Emerging Technology Report, which is an older document, but it really describes UHPC, at least from the perspective we had in 2018. Possibly the more useful one is 239.1, which is a tech note that really describes what is UHPC. It really goes through the way ACI defines UHPC. And we'll go into that very briefly this morning. And the committee is, or sorry, the competition is really run by its subcommittee 239E, which is educational outreach for UHPC. I was formerly the chair of that committee, and now I'm still a member of that subcommittee, but I'm mainly just running the competition. So let's just briefly talk about what is UHPC. From a constituent standpoint, typically UHPC has high binder content, low water cement ratio, finely graded aggregates, and carefully graded aggregates actually for particle packing. And it's typically going to include fiber reinforcement. That tends to get you some pretty impressive performance. We define UHPC within ACI as at least 17,500 PSI or 120 megapascals compressive strength, 720 PSI or 5 megapascals tensile strength. More importantly, a capacity for post-cracking tensile strength. UHPC typically has extremely good durability. And one of the reasons for this competition is UHPC is known for extremely good impact resistance. And that's kind of the property that we're hoping to leverage through this competition. I do want to make a note, though, that nothing in the rules says that your UHPC mixtures need to meet any or all of these requirements. So I think it's good for you to shoot for a UHPC mix that fits these criteria, but it is certainly not a requirement. The rules have been posted for a while, and I really did not want to just go through the rules and read them to you, but I wanted to point out a few critical things. And the first was with materials. There's been a few questions that have come in about materials. And I want to just briefly talk about the two options that you have. One is to use a proprietary UHPC product, and the other is to come up with a non-proprietary or a homemade UHPC mixture. If you're going to use a proprietary product, you have to use that as specified by the manufacturer, which means you cannot go and buy some sort of component and mix it in a proportion that's not recommended, or add components that are not recommended. When we say a proprietary UHPC product, there are many manufacturers of UHPC materials. We're envisioning that you would contact one of those manufacturers and purchase or ask for donations of their UHPC mixture and mix it and cast it in the way that they prescribe. The other option, if you're not going to use a proprietary material, is to come up with your own mixture. And this is very encouraged. I'm hoping to see a lot of creativity in mixture design here. And the non-proprietary basically means you're going to use individually sourced components, and you're going to mix them at proportions that you determine. And there are a lot of additional guidelines for the materials that you can use in the rules. I'm not going to go through all of them. They're fairly specific, and it's kind of up to the teams to make sure they understand what those requirements are. And if you have questions about them, the first thing to do is to look at the FAQs on the competition webpage. And if you don't see an answer to your question there, please submit a question through the competition webpage and we'll get you an answer as quickly as we can. This slide should have come first. I made these slides this morning because that's the life of a professor. The objectives of the competition are to design and build the highest impact load resistant egg protection device. I'll show you a basic egg protection device drawing in a minute, and to learn about and report on sustainability, durability, impact resistance, and other benefits of UHPC. There's also an aesthetics component to the competition, which Armin will describe in a few minutes. Anyway, back to the requirements. So we're going a little out of order, but this is a generic egg protection device. You can see that we have a requirement for an open space in the middle here. So it almost forms a bridge, or a horseshoe shape is how we've been describing it. There are plenty of requirements here. These dimensions, there's min and max dimensions, and ultimately, I think I can bring up a laser pointer here somewhere, maybe not. Okay, I think you can see my mouse, hopefully. The impact load will be applied right here at the middle, and you need to have a flat spot here. The device doesn't need to have square edges or anything like that, but it does need to have a flat spot right here where the impact hammer will land. I happen to have the main part of the impact hammer right here is just a 5 kilogram weight of steel. So you can imagine this falling from different heights and striking your EPD right in the middle of the top face. Hopefully that's clear. There's 3 main parts to the competition, 4 if you include the aesthetics, but the aesthetics will be judged separately, and there's a separate set of rules for that. So for the main part of the competition, the 3 components are the report, the cube test, and the impact test. For the report, each team needs to prepare a written report, and we give you in the rules, we give you a pretty specific structure, and we ask for some very specific things, including mixture details. There's a mixture spreadsheet that you need to fill out that's available on the competition page. There's certain photographs that we need to see because we can't go into your labs and watch you cast these things, so we need you to use photographs to prove that you're adhering to the rules mainly. So please pay close attention to those requirements. And in the rules, we also give you the rubric that we will use to grade your reports. And they're slightly vague, but ultimately we tell you how many points each section is worth. And as long as you're adhering to the requirements that we put out for each section, you'll get full credit. So please check those things pretty closely. If you have specific questions about that, please ask them after this or submit them through the FAQs. The cube test. We're asking each team to bring 3 cubes for compression testing. The cubes should be either 50 millimeter or 2-inch cubes. Either one is fine. But they should be cast from the UHPC matrix only. That means that we want to see the material without the fibers. We want you to cast those cubes because typically the fibers are going to be longer than would be allowable in a 50 millimeter cube. Within the report, you need to predict the compressive strength of your cubes. Okay, we've gotten several FAQs on this that are basically saying we may not have time to get 28-day compressive strength values. That's okay, actually. We want you to predict the compressive strength of your cubes. That prediction should be based on data, but if you don't have time to get that data, that's okay. There's no requirement for there to be any data, actually. We just want you to predict the compressive strength. And the way we're scoring the cube test, I know there's a lot on the screen here, but pay attention to the bottom couple lines. Your score is going to be based on the percent difference between the average strength that we measure and the predicted compressive strength that you report. So you get a higher score if you're good at predicting the compressive strength. And the score is also going to be based on the percent difference between two measurements. I've got the wrong use of two there. Sorry, it was very early this morning. But basically, if you have a lot of consistency in your mixture and your compressive strength measurements are very close together, you'll get a high score. If you don't have a lot of consistency in your mixture, you'll get a lower score. The impact test. Teams will produce one EPD for impact testing. The EPDs, there are a lot of dimensional requirements and things like that. I'm not going to go through all of those here. We don't have time to go through all the intricate details, but please check them closely. We will be measuring your EPDs. We'll be weighing your EPDs. We'll be making sure that the clearance in the middle of the EPD is sufficient. We'll be very, very careful about making sure you're adhering to the requirements. The impact test, as I mentioned, EPDs will be loaded by dropping this 5-kilogram chunk of steel right at the midspan and the center of the midspan of your EPD. Because we don't yet know how many teams there will be, and because we have a certain amount of time allotted to this competition, we do not yet know the exact impact sequence, but it will generally follow dropping the weight from successively increasing heights. We don't yet know how many drops and how many different heights we will have. That all is determined by how much time we have to test each individual EPD. But after the report deadline, which is coming up, by the way, so we have a little over 40 teams registered. Typically, not every team submits a report, and at that point, the number of teams is kind of fixed. Then we'll be able to determine the exact loading sequence, and we will release that information to you. But right now, the only detail I have is that it'll be a 5-kilogram weight dropped from increasing heights, and I believe the max height that we can drop from is about 5 meters. Here is again the EPD. These are the dimensions that you need to meet. The big one is that 275 millimeter wide by 175 millimeter tall space in the middle. Those are minimum dimensions, and we will have a plug that is 275 by 175 that we will try to fit through the opening of your EPD, and if it does not fit, your team will be disqualified. The other dimensions are equally important. We'll be measuring those manually with tape measures and calipers and things like that. There's also a weight requirement listed in the rules, and we'll be checking weights. So what constitutes failure? Either the egg cracks due to structural damage or concrete's falling. If the egg falls out and falls on the ground and cracks just because of vibration or something like that, we will replace the egg. But if a part of your EPD falls off and breaks the egg, or if for some other reason due to structural damage the egg breaks, that will be considered failure. Or if the EPD becomes unstable and can no longer support its own weight, that will be considered to have failed. Ultimately, the team will go in rank order of which teams survive the most number of impacts to assign score here. And we do have a tie-breaking procedure in case multiple teams survive the same number of impacts from the same height. So don't worry about that. Speaking of scoring, here's some sample scoring that we included in the rules. So 60% of your score will be based on the impact test, which is a rank. And so in this scenario, Team A survived the impact from the highest height, and Team B survived the second highest, and Team D the third, and Team C the fourth. So we do rank order that way. Cube test is worth 20%. So in this fictitious scenario, Team B was the lead in terms of cube test, and again, that's based on how close your prediction was to your measurement and how close your measurements were to each other. And then the report is worth 20%, and there's a rubric in the rules that you can look at. We record the EPD mass as a tiebreaker. So you can see in this scenario, Team A and Team B, the final score was the same. And so here's where the tiebreaker comes in. When we have a tie for final score, the lighter EPD wins. And so in this scenario, Team B would be first place and Team A would be second place because Team B had the same performance at a lower weight. So they were more efficient. So as I mentioned, we've had a few frequently asked questions. We're expecting a few more to come in. I already talked about this first one. I just mentioned kind of the 4 things that have come up the most. The 28-day compressive strength measurements are not required. If you can't get a 28-day compressive strength, don't worry about it. You can make that prediction based on anything. You could make up a number and it's okay. We'd prefer it to be based on data, but it's not a requirement. The rules did include a few unit conversion errors. I will take the blame for that. We have tried to update those things. I'll tell you that the units in metric are the ones that are always correct. We just had a few English unit conversion errors, and those are discussed in the existing FAQs, and I believe we've updated the rules to fix those things. Again, the cubes should be made with the UHPC matrix only, which means all the materials that go into your UHPC minus the fibers. And one that has come up several times, not just through the FAQs, but in conversations I've had with other people, EPDs are not allowed to include macro reinforcement. There should be no wires, there should be no rebars, there should be no any of that in there. The way this competition was run in the past did include macro reinforcement. We're now doing the competition with UHPC, which one of the benefits of is impact resistance. And so we are no longer including macro scale reinforcement, no rebar, no wires. Hopefully that is clear. So I think that's the end of my slides. I think maybe at this point, Armin, do you want to go ahead and say a few things about aesthetics and then we can open it up for questions?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So if you guys, you know, the attendees here, if you participate in the bowling ball competition in the spring, that was the first time we had an aesthetics component to a student competition. It was incredible seeing some of those bowling balls. A lot of time and effort went into making them look, I'll just say, pretty cool. And it was really exciting to see. And our committee was really excited to see that kind of level of participation. And so we're planning on, with the EPD and even other competitions, trying to always have some type of aesthetic component. And so for the EPD aesthetic component, the key thing is it is your single EPD. I've already answered a question that was asked regarding, do you have to make 2? You know, one is your kind of demo piece, that showcase piece, and then one that's tested. You do not. You just bring one EPD. And that's why in the rules, there's a requirement to have a photograph of your EPD in its final state, so that during the people's choice judging throughout the day, if your device has already been tested, you will still have a photograph present for people to look at, kind of what it did look like prior to testing. And a lot of people can still kind of get a sense of your aesthetics, even if it has been tested, because they'll physically see it. The judging for the aesthetics from the actual judging committee will occur prior to testing, so that the judges are seeing your final product with no damage present in it. The rules, I think, are fairly straightforward. They're structured in a way similar to ACI 318, where there's code and commentary to kind of give team's background on why certain rules are in place. And I want to highlight just a few things. The first being at the end of the aesthetics rules, there's Exhibit A, which has teams submit 40-word or less descriptions answering 4 questions. And it's listed in the rules, but I will just explicitly state now. During the bowling ball competition, the judges were directly swayed by the responses provided in that write-up because it kind of clarified the aesthetic choice that the teams had made. So don't think of the aesthetics information sheet as just that, yeah, we'll just fill that out with whatever. Take time to carefully word your answer. We purposely restricted it to 40 words because ChatGPT can give you lots of words, and we want you to actually take the time to focus on what's really important with your aesthetic choices. The other big thing is this time, unlike the bowling ball, we have an explicit requirement that whatever aesthetic choice or process you choose to do must be commercially viable. There were some really cool bowling balls last time, and a few of the processes chosen would not necessarily work in a commercial setting, even though it looks really cool. Um, Glitter being one of them. There are metallic types of glitter that can be used in concrete aesthetic production, and you're welcome to use those as they are explicitly listed for concrete use. But going to Hobby Lobby or some other arts and crafts store and just sprinkling glitter in your mix or on the surface is not something that's done commercially. So please, as you're thinking about the aesthetics, think about what is commercially viable. And with that, I don't think there's anything else in the aesthetics rules that is terribly complicated, but I'm happy to answer any questions regarding that portion.
Thanks, Armin. I see a question from Hans here about whether EPDs and cubes need to be cast on the same day. There is no requirement for that. There is a requirement that the EPD must be cast from one, continuously monolithically from one mixture, but there's no requirement that that needs to be the same mixture or on the same day. I see a question about sharing the recorded webinar with participants. I think that's a question for Jaden.
The webinar will be shared to the competition page, the egg protection device page, shortly, either later today or early tomorrow. But it'll be shared sometime soon to the competition page so that everybody can have access to it as well. Great question, Steve. Do we have any other questions from any of our attendees? Feel free to ask, as competition will be closing upcoming on the night of the 3rd, 11:59.
Yeah. So because we have a lot of teams registered, the report is due the night of October 3rd, which is next Friday. If your team does not get the report submitted by the deadline, your team will not be eligible to compete.
There will
Do the
be no
corners on the
extensions.
EPD have to be at 90 degrees or can they be rounded? Question from Ann. There is no requirement that the corners of the EPD need to be square. They can be rounded as long as the overall height, the overall depth, the overall width, and the opening dimensions are within tolerance, and as long as there is a 100 by 100 millimeter flat spot at the top, on the top face, mid-span, center of the EPD, you're good. Rounded corners are perfectly acceptable.
What time do we expect the competition will be over on Sunday? The competition typically runs anywhere in the range of 7 or 8 hours, starting from the time we start, which is typically around 9 o'clock, something of that sort.
I think we're starting at 8, and
8
I believe there's a hard stop on the competition at 4 or 4:30 this year.
Competition teams are typically sent out a schedule listing when it is their team is expected to be on the floor. However, due to the way we're running this competition, we are asking some teams, if possible, to check in their EPDs early, to be there with their entire team, completely checked into both convention and to the competition. You can come and just drop your EPD off. That way we can get you signed in and kind of start some of the processes. That helps Rob and the rest of the committee and myself to run the competition as smooth as possible. So the soonest that you can get there on Sunday, 8 o'clock, we will all be down there. I'm sure many of us will be down there even sooner than that. But the
yeah,
sooner you can get it to
sorry.
us, the better, for sure.
Yeah, and just to add, you know, you're physically there during the EPD testing, but for the aesthetics, your bridge itself, everyone's bridge will need to be um, uh, given to a setup, however you want to call it, by the start of the competition, so it can be judged by the judges. But you, as a team, do not need to be there during the aesthetics judging, just your bridge. So a single person in the morning can drop it off if you have an afternoon competition time.
We'll be sending out some kind of more detailed instructions after the report deadline, because again, the report deadline tells us how many of you will actually be there to compete. There's always, I know everybody submits the registration and says, yes, we'll be there to compete. But the fact is there's always teams that don't do the next step. And so once we have a solid number, we'll figure out all the logistics and download that information to you. But don't worry, it will be abundantly clear when you need to be there and where you need to be.
Absolutely. Great questions. Great questions. Do we have any more questions from any of our attendees? Wonderful questions. I see many of them have been answered. If you have any other questions, feel free to contact myself. Can be found at the students@concrete.org. If anyone needs to submit any questions, post, or you forget something now and you want to ask later, I'll be sure to get your questions to Rob by the competition close so that we can have them all answered typically after the submission round, we stop taking submissions for questions, so that we allow our chair to have time to work on the starter competition and things of the sort. If you do have questions, feel free to ask them in the meantime. Thank you so much, Rob. Thank you so much, Armin, for hosting this for us today.
Of course, yeah, we're really looking forward to seeing you all in Baltimore. As Jaden said, please submit questions. If you have any doubt about anything, we don't want you to show up and have done something that gets you disqualified. We'd much rather get the questions now. But ultimately, I'm really looking forward to seeing you all in Baltimore. I'm looking forward to breaking some eggs.
Definitely be a fun competition. Perfect, perfect. If we don't have any more questions going once, going twice, and sold. Okay. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Feel free to let me know if you all need anything.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you.